So many moms feel stuck and isolated, like they've got to keep it all together and can't say how hard it really is. On Let's Get Real, we talk about the real stuff, motherhood, mental health, and everything in between, so you don't feel like you have to carry it alone anymore. Because in order to heal, we have to get real. If you're feeling overwhelmed, grab the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide. It's totally free and made to help you feel like yourself again. The link is in the show notes. Let's jump in. So many high-achieving women look like they have it all together, with successful careers, thriving businesses, and full lives. But underneath it all, they're exhausted. Burnout becomes normal, and stress becomes constant. At some point, the question starts to surface. Is this actually working, or does something drastic have to change? Today, we're joined by Heather Simco, a transformation coach, entrepreneur, and founder of Complete Concierge Solutions, and Sober Boss Babe. With over 20 years of entrepreneurial experience and more than a decade of sobriety, Heather helps high-achieving women break free from burnout and self-sabotage. Her work focuses on mental, physical, and emotional sobriety, guiding women to reclaim their energy, elevate their leadership, and build aligned, sustainable success. Heather, thank you so much for being here today. I'm very excited to get to talk about this topic on burnout and self-sabotage and ways that we can actually break free from it. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Can you start by sharing a little bit of your own journey of what burnout and coping looked like for you, and then what eventually led you to choose sobriety?
Yeah. I grew up I didn't win the lottery of parents. We'll put it that way. So my parents were teenagers when they had me. And then that very quickly ended. And my dad got custody of me and moved into a new relationship with my stepmother when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And that turned into a very typical Cinderella story. So my whole childhood, and most of us have grown up this way, where you present a version of yourself and don't talk about what happens in the house and all of those, just basically putting on a facade most of your life. And there was a lot of addiction going on in the house that I was unaware of growing up. By the time I hit high school, I was basically super nerd. Like, I liked school. That was just how I was wired. At one point wanted to be a pediatrician. So there's no way to go into that track if you're not good at school. So, and I've been babysitting since I was 11. I was a neighborhood babysitter. So everywhere I went, kids basically always followed me. And so I've just always had that instinct. And then I hit high school and hit a massive depression mode of, I lost my stepmother, and her controlling kept me from seeing my best friend because she'd said something in a letter back in the day of like actual physical letters before email, back in the dark ages.
Yes.
That because I didn't have access in my nerd environment to parties or drugs, I turned to food. That was my first coping mechanism. And that's how I learned to just shove emotions aside and numb everything. And I went from being very athletic to being overweight in one summer of high school, and almost recognizable in 2 months. And the rest of my high school was just standing out like a sore thumb and being very depressed. I grew up in what my high school was just very high achievers. They were either going to Harvard or they were models on magazines. Like, it was almost like Beverly Hills 90210. That was like a little typical California-ish to an extent. That depression in high school really set me up for a lot of the coping underneath, like putting on the facade on the outside, keeping people away from what's happening at home, and just fell into very deep depression and feeling fairly suicidal in high school and wanting a way out. And so those in my mind were the options. Obviously, suicide it's a very tough topic, but it's really actually where I was at that time. And so I was like, well, between my teachers and the kids I babysit for, I was just really like that. I would never want to put anyone through that. College seems a lot easier. So I picked it up and I focused on my schoolwork and ended up getting into several really good colleges, both in California, and my stepmother was from New York. We decided to move cross country. I could have stayed, but I decided to move 3,000 miles away from everything I had known and start afresh in a whole new world, literally. And by the time we landed in New York, I was 17 years old, no driver's license, no car. My parents were driving me to and from college. I'm like, why am I still in high school and I'm in college? So yes. I hightailed it out of there, moved into the dorms, and I've been on my own since I was 17 years old and bootstrapped it. All of that coping, all of that emotion was just underneath it all. But I was constantly in survival mode. And I know most moms, most people live in survival mode, and that perpetuated my addiction. So I ended up picking up for the first time in college what seemed normal of all your peers, completely normal, but The problem was once everyone stopped, I kept going. And I ended up meeting my husband, who I'm still married to. We've been together almost 27 years and married since about 20, we'll be 24 years this year. And he ran a business. I was going to school for teaching, pedal to the metal. We were entrepreneurs and I had my steady income. But with, again, all of that burnout and coping, I'm wearing multiple facades. I've got to be a version of myself in the teaching environment, a businesswoman, and all the different areas. We ended up building the gym up considerably. It was a mixed martial arts, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So as the world started catching up to what we were doing, the business exploded. My husband was a forefront in actually authoring and digital media before there was YouTube. So we were really on the forefront of instructionals way before this was super common where it is now. And I was able to finally leave my teaching job in 2010 and work full time in the business. And so we sold part of it, moved to Florida. But through all of this, I was drinking and I was enabled because I was able to keep everyone at bay. And the harder I worked, the more I succeeded. And in spite of my drinking, we were still successful. So there was really no super reason to stop. I did take a tiny hiatus when I had my daughter, who's 21 now, for like 4 years, and dealt with postpartum depression. But in the world of sobriety, dry drunk. I didn't realize that my mental illness was just stacked on top of postpartum depression, which I don't recommend for anyone, to say the least.
That is rough. Yes.
So fast forward to 2012, we sell part of our business, moved down to Florida, and the accessibility of alcohol is everywhere. I get in a car accident and I was everything that I had worked towards. I'd been to Mrs. New York, successful, like multiple things on paper that I thought would create a sense of value and pleasing everyone in the world, all fell apart. I couldn't do anything that I had put that made any of the titles in my life. It's just me. And I finally ended up surrendering April 30th, 2014, because the situations were getting crazier and crazier. I couldn't hide it anymore. My husband just couldn't handle dealing with me. And we were finally going to church and people came in and just introduced themselves, introduced me to sobriety. And I finally surrendered. And so my sobriety date is actually next week. The 30th will be 12 years that I prayed to God and he released that compulsion from me. And all of that coping, all of that survival mode just came crashing down finally. So that's where I had to finally reinvent myself and start from scratch all over again. So,
wow. Yeah. And it's truly like forging and finding the new path forward, which I think is one of the hardest things, because so much of what we want to do is try to go back and be like, hold on, what worked before? Or what do I do here? Yep. Pull from something familiar. But then we're like, this whole thing has to be dismantled. Like it no longer works. I'm glad that you shared earlier when you were in high school, one of the coping mechanisms was with food, because I don't think we realize how many different types of coping mechanisms we use besides the very obvious, like substance use, and how food can definitely be one of those things where it helps us cope and deal with feelings really that we don't know what to do with or how to deal with it, and we don't know how to share or talk about it. So we find these ways of trying to self-soothe or just help ourselves feel better for a period of time, but then it doesn't actually work, or it escalates into so much more. Yeah. And so I'm glad that you're able to share both of those experiences, and really just even in the transition and the move to Florida, just like how it escalates. Like eventually, I think it's like we can think we get really good at hiding it for a time. And there's a way where it's like, this is working until it doesn't. So you gave some really great examples in your story of what some of the burnout looked like. And especially when it comes to addiction entering into the picture, what are some early signs that you see in a lot of your clients who are on the path of burnout?
The biggest thing, and this was where I should have seen the signs sooner, is running at 100 miles an hour. Like I could work 18-hour days. And that's how I got as far as I did. I would, teach full time, come home, sign people up at the gym. Mail books. But when it came down to having a healthy means to go from 100 miles an hour to slowing down and relaxing, I didn't have the healthy mechanisms to have that coping that was a healthy measure. And it was always extreme. It was either over dieting. Everything was either, I call it deprivation or overcompensation. And that's what I think most women go to. They go to the crash diets. They go to, I'm just going to stop drinking. And then it transitions into, I'm going to overwork out and overdo this. And so we're just chasing some solution as opposed to finding proper balance. And so when it comes to women in burnout, is learning how to continue to work at the high levels that we're used to working at, but not sabotaging ourselves with what we're putting in our body with. And for me, sobriety, and especially the women I work with, is not just a substance, because when it comes to food, you can't not eat.
Yeah.
There's some things you just can't be abstinent from. And so those coping mechanisms can be in so many different channels. I say same root, different branch, but we're so used to putting on such a show for everyone that we've got it all together, and then come home and everything's crumbled on the inside, because we just want to enjoy, or I deserve that glass of wine, or I enjoy that piece of cake, or whatever their coping mechanism is. It can be shopping. I deserve that next handbag. Yeah. I mean, it shows up in so many different ways to release the pressure of high achieving women that we don't, at least for me, I never learned how to stop and smell the roses. I was always on to the next thing, as opposed to, I can do this at 100 miles an hour. So I can be at, like, use the brakes to come down slowly instead of using the anti-lock brakes where you're almost hitting into a wall. So that's the biggest thing I see is giving them the proper coping skills to go from that 100 miles an hour that we're so used to doing everything at, to the all or nothing, and learning how to just be comfortable in that middle of the road, which most of us are not. I certainly wasn't. Like,
no, that is learned. It is learned. You have to retrain your nervous system, retrain your brain.
Hard. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think you gave such a good picture of these extremes, because just thinking of, and even just with work, right? Like how, or the other example you gave with food and how that's essential. We have to have that to live, but it can also turn into an addiction and a way of coping. It's the same thing with work. Like workaholism is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
But it isn't really talked about much. We actually really reward people for working an insane amount of hours.
100%.
And so that's also an extreme, and that's also a way of coping in these ways. So I can picture what was coming to mind as you're describing this was like the extreme of like these crazy, it could be 12-hour days or 18-hour days. And then when we need to calm down, I can see the counter needing to be extreme as well. Like I need a glass of wine, multiple glasses of wine to like more instantly, a bottle, like just to instantly help take the edge off. Like that's the other extreme. There's no easing into the transition of coming home and being with my family. It's that all or nothing, these like the crazy roller coaster that is very easy to get on. And it does take intentionality and learning. Like we have to learn when we've been operating in this way and our brain is so used to that. It feels very like just like that's not right, or it's not going to work, or this isn't, so it takes a while for our brain to have to learn this is safe, this is healthy, this is okay. And so I could imagine the process that you see women go through and trying to really create not even balance, but just like finding more of the middle than going to those extremes. Like that would be very difficult.
Exactly. Yeah, because they're so used to, and the workaholicism, look, I've literally been in every single realm. And as we've said, same thing, even my addiction, the more I work, the more you're rewarded. It's that dopamine hit.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many ways where you're constantly rewarded, both in your environment and your body, getting something done, and also learning how to reward yourself just as much. And that's what, like that work hard, play hard. We have this American mindset where we like live to work instead of work to live, and helping women transition. Like it's okay to put down the phone at a certain time at night and engage back in your family. And also self-care, not being selfish. That is one of the biggest things I have to help women with, is that we're so used to taking care of everyone else. We put ourselves on the back burner, and then we actually leave ourselves on the back burner for long. We're burnt out because we're so used to taking care of everyone else. And then it's overcompensation again. It's like, okay, forget everyone. I'm going to take care of myself. And I've been in that mode far too many times that I can even express.
That is a really great point too, because I'm curious about some of these beliefs, right, that are there. Like even just some of the thoughts that I have relating to workaholism. It's so much of it we can learn that we have to earn and prove our worth. So we're constantly chasing, and we never actually feel secure with who we are. It's like, hold on, I feel less than, or I feel shame. I'm not enough. And so the way I do that is through these tangible markers. But then we don't feel like we can really rest until we hit this like ambiguous mark, which is constantly moving. It's this moving target. And then to think of the other side of it, like you were describing with women, the common belief, because that's so much of the battle. It's like these beliefs that come up that really we bump up against that tend to prevent us from taking the actions that we know we need to take. And so that belief of it's selfish to take care of myself. And then what happens is like we become very resentful. of other people around us. There's all these other byproducts of that. But then just thinking like, what is it keeping us from giving ourselves permission to take care of ourselves? What is that? Like, is it generational? Is this something that we witnessed? Is it cultural? I mean, I would imagine a combination of things, but like so if that's kind of one of the bigger struggles, what have you seen has really helped women to shift that belief to see it's really not selfish? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen as far as them transition out of that and how that's transformed their own lives?
Biggest thing that helps women and that I've had to teach them, boundaries. Taking a full life inventory of who is in your life, what's in your life that's toxic, and pulling your energy away that's not helpful. Because a lot of people who are either benefiting from your extreme behavior want you to keep doing that. And so when you want to pull back, whether it's family members, anyone in your life, honestly, and helping them really take a full inventory mentally and emotionally of the relationships in their life and what they look like. And once you create certain boundaries in your life, and I've seen that with like my mother-in-law expects this from me, so we're always there helping her. I'm like, okay, what are the ways in which that you can, like, I had a friend of mine, they were driving 4 hours across the state to go visit her in the hospital. She has the help living into this where she's being her own self-sabotage. And so creating those boundaries, like, this is how much I can do for you before it starts hurting my family. And before I put the oxygen mask on myself, I have to take care of this first before I can take care of you, because there's only so much that I can give. And so giving them the tools of no is a complete sentence. This is what I need to do to take care of myself. And the hardest part is enforcing those boundaries. And so that I find is the key to all success, whether it's professional, personal, financial. It's more about what you say no to than what you say yes to. And we're so used to people pleasing that no, I mean, we can say no to a toddler about a candy bar on our way out, but tell your boss, no, I'm stopping work at 6 p.m. can be very, very difficult, you know?
Yeah.
And my kid's soccer game is on Sunday, but there's a birthday party I have to go to on this side, or a family member wants me to be at their next, family reunion and puts me on a guilt trip. So we really walk through all of the emotions and the pulls in your life and start making them right sized and empowering you as a woman to learn how to balance yourself and your self-care and what other people are pulling you away from and harming you in ways that you didn't see before. And that works. Honestly, that's just boundaries and looking at all the relationships and giving them the tools to walk through those. I've had, countless, but that, and this person, I'm like, they're a grown up. They have to figure out that you're not immortal or you're not this. This is what you can do because it's hurting you or your family. And that has to come first. And so those are some of the most, I find that's almost like the secret key to success in anything is having boundaries and enforcing them properly to get anywhere you need to go. Because without that, there's no tangible course to your next goal. Like if we want a weight loss goal, I can't have that. I go to the gym. Like we do it in so many other ways, but when it comes to our self-care and the actual whole being of yourself and or your family, we let those things go so quickly. That's the beginning of the end of unraveling, of making sure that you're doing for you what you need to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just when I think about the process of sitting down and being able to just take some time to think about what those boundaries need to be, it then really helps to identify what is most important and be like to ourselves, like what is important to me, for me and for my kids and like in these other areas of my life that then we don't feel like we have to get thrown around by what other people, like their demands basically, because that is the tendency. And especially how busy our lives tend to be, it's very hard. We don't realize that we're not taking the time to sit down and even just look at our calendar and say, is this reflecting what I say is important? Like I feel, and again, the feelings part, which I think is huge and very easily missed that you just addressed, is like the feelings that we have are indicators. They actually are trying to communicate something to us. And when we don't pay attention, that's literally this whole process of what feeds addiction. It's avoiding feelings.
Burnout, because you're pushing all those feelings aside without dealing with them. And then you're so tired of stuffing them, you just crash and you get, that's it. That's when everything comes falling, because it becomes a house of cards. All it takes is one heavy blow and it all comes crumbling down. So helping women identify it before that happens, that's where the magic, that's where that happens.
Yes, I could totally see that. And just taking the time to work through the feelings coming up, like, and processing the beliefs that are there to see, is it actually true? Is that like, can you let go of some of this stuff? Because you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling exhausted, you feel pressure, the pressure to have to say yes, like to the mother-in-law situation. But then to take a moment and challenge that and be like, hold on, like, where is it? Or then probably with that, it's guilt, right? And it's
entirely.
typically not earned guilt.
No.
We didn't actually do anything
them
wrong.
manipulating you so that they can keep getting what they want.
Exactly.
And that's in this transformation. The hardest thing I've had to help women transition to is the expectation of who you used to be. And the minute you start changing, they backlash because they are so used to pushing your buttons to get what they want. They're not used to you putting up new boundaries and enforcing a new version of yourselves, which puts on your guilt, which puts you backtrack. Like, that's why those boundaries and working through those feelings. Are they facts? Is that what is it? This is just guilt. This is just a feeling. Is this a fact? And then they're grown women or adults. They can deal with it themselves. Let them go to a therapist and figure it out for themselves.
Exactly.
You don't have to burn yourself out on their behalf.
Oh my gosh. What a great combination to be able to establish boundaries and then work through the feelings that come up, because it's very hard. It's very, very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to that. And you deal with a lot of the people pleasing and the guilt and the shame, like all this stuff. So to have the space be like, okay, I'm going to practice this. I'm going to just try it, like implementing that, and with it, dealing with the feelings, because if we don't, we're going to lead to coping in these unhealthy ways. So, and then it just is this whole ripple effect. Something that you mentioned earlier was about self-sabotage. And I would love it if you could expand on that a little bit more. Like, what are some of the ways that you see women self-sabotage?
Oh yeah. It is that people pleasing, thinking that you can make everyone happy, which is a complete and total illusion. And once you can let go of that, it's transformative. I was talking about boundaries. At first, no almost feels uncomfortable. Then it almost gets like, once you get used to it, it becomes empowering. And it's like, oh, wow, I do have a voice. I can stand up for myself, because that self-sabotage, that people pleasing just eats away at you, because you think the illusion of making someone happy is going to finally fix that confrontation, or you're afraid of that confrontation, when actually it's harming you. It's harming your schedule. It's harming your kids. It's putting you in a situation where you're carrying too much, like your plate's too full. And I try and work with women and say, it's better for you to take inventory of what you're saying, too many things that you're saying yes to. You decide what comes off of your plate so someone else doesn't decide for you, because they will. Everyone has their breaking point. And I'd rather empower them, because that's where that self-sabotage comes in. You say yes too many times, and you can only spin so many plates at the same time. Eventually, you can't anymore. And so that's that self-sabotage, where you think you're doing the best for everyone. And unfortunately, you overextend yourself. And that's where the sabotage comes in. And then it reinforces itself. See, when I people please everyone, everything comes crashing down. So that's why I need the glass of wine. That's why I need the coping mechanism. It keeps the self-deprecation of guilt, shame, remorse, of that guilt cycle. And when you can finally get off that hamster wheel and create this whole new healthy version of yourself and enforce it, you can actually think through, you can respond to situations instead of reacting. You can take the time. Okay, where in my life can I make things more efficient? Where can I delegate? Where can I just have, even with moms, where can you have Instacart deliver the groceries home so you don't have to worry about 5 toddlers in the store pulling you 10 different directions, and have them bring it to you? You deliver it at my front porch. Because where can you time save? Where can you let other people help? Because for me, asking for help was the hardest thing. Learning how to delegate so I can elevate myself was one of the hardest mechanisms, because I thought I was serving myself, and it was really just sabotaging my time, my health, my ability to do the best version of what I could do, because I was trying to just do too much. And so with self-sabotage, it's a very interesting illusion that I don't think women realize is self-sabotage, because it seems like it's productive, but actually it's destructive.
Oh my gosh, I have not heard of people pleasing as a form of self-sabotage, and I can see how that is. I'm really glad that you brought this up, because the people pleaser aspect, like I will say, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm a recovering people pleaser. For sure. That's like one of my biggest pulls. It's that's what's made it so difficult to say no. And then over the past several years, I've had some significant health challenges, which has led me to face very real limits, where I'm like, wow, I'm physically limited in so many ways that I'd never experienced before. So it's like being forced into, like, I can't. I have had enough reps and times saying yes to so many things and be like, I cannot. So like, it really forced me to have to face this and learn it. But like, I still have to really wrestle through and process with, like, the biggest thing is, okay, what do I need? Like, first of all, what am I feeling? What is that feeling telling me about what I need? I have an unmet need, and that unmet need is going to require me taking some form of action to get it met. And when I think of taking the action, a lot of times I bump up against the people pleaser aspect of like, ooh, that might upset this person, or that might mean that I have to ask for help and that's an inconvenience to them, even though it's a massive inconvenience to me. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I can just see that in my own life of like how that really has like what it does. I feel like it's just this piling on where you get buried. Like who you are gets buried, your values get buried, your priority, what you actually want to do, living intentionally and aligned, that gets buried. Like you don't really have a fighting chance as long as like we're continuously saying yes to everybody else. And I just feel like that's such a discreet one. I truly would not have thought of people pleasing as a way of self-sabotage. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that's come up. I don't know if so the listeners know, my husband and I transitioned from working in mixed martial arts. We've since put that career away, and we are now in church ministry realm. So he's now a lead pastor, which is a complete and total 180.
That is awesome.
This has really helped me with my pastoral counseling training. This is where this came to light, is that codependence and people pleasing is honestly the most destructive thing I've seen people. It's their biggest blind spot. And it becomes enabling. It hurts them in the long run by saying yes too often or not creating those healthy boundaries. And we think, because we're in general, everyone's got a good heart. They think they're doing well for someone else, not realizing how it's actually hurting them and the other person, or where those limits are of how much you can help before it's hurting someone. And so, it's a huge blind spot for so many people, especially moms, because you lose yourself.
You do.
We get to the end and you're like, where did I go? Where did my dreams go?
Right.
I'm suffocated. I don't even know who I am anymore, because I've said yes to so many things. I don't even remember the last time I did something for myself. And then now you're building from below ground zero at this point, as opposed to, again, finding that balance. There's never too late to be able to start working on your self-improvement when you're ready to. And those baby steps are so important, if once you're willing and ready to, but it's very empowering once you start walking that path.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so true. I'm just really glad that you're speaking to this. The thought that is coming up, and again, because you talked about, like you mentioned, healthy and unhealthy, like these healthy ways of coping, unhealthy ways of coping. I remember talking to this relationship coach, and he said there's more than just right or wrong, good or bad. There's also healthy and unhealthy. And that really stuck with me, because it just was another option to consider, and thinking of like, well, what in the things I'm doing, the choices I'm making, and is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? And when I think of coping mechanisms, I think what would be helpful is to hear some more examples of the unhealthy coping mechanisms that you see people go to. Like we've talked about some of them, but maybe some additional ones. And then when you coach clients, the healthy ways of coping that you coach them towards, just to see more of the difference between the two.
So for healthy and unhealthy, my version of that is this constructive or deconstructive? So is this something that's going to create something constructive in my life, or is it something that's deconstructing it? And so in addiction or in sobriety or any of these different things, it's okay to, and I've even worked myself through this in my eating. That was actually a harder addiction to overcome than alcohol. You just put the alcohol down, but like dealing with food, you're battling with it every single time you're deciding what to put in your mouth. Yeah. And so learning how to, one slice of cake can be constructive at a birthday party. Buying the whole cake and eating on Wednesday night is deconstructive. Really looking through like each decision, which helping the person slow down, helping the woman slow down. And that's very hard for us. It becomes habit over time. Is this decision I'm about to make, is this something that's healthy, like as you said, or constructive? Is this helping me toward my goal or away from it, or unhealthy? Is this healthy for my family? Is this healthy for my mindset? Is this healthy for my emotions? Is this healthy for what I'm doing and towards the life that I want to live, versus unhealthy? And so unhealthy, we've got this huge category, and it can be, especially as women, chaos junkies, anger, picking fights, nagging. Like there's so many extreme emotions that most people don't realize those emotions are addictive, because it gives that same dopamine hit as food, as other things. And that can also be shopping. I said, moving on to the next handbag, the next nice car, keeping up with the Joneses, like all of these other things that are exterior, and or working out, like you keep hooking, like the next Lululemon pair of pants that came out, like anything that is going to pull you away from your goal, and bringing that back down to, this is a healthy amount of this, where I don't have to take it out entirely, versus the unhealthy version of that. And so coping, really, like I said before, we work on taking inventory of what are your triggers, what are your things that are your extremes, and then how do we replace them? So whether it's weight or it's food, how do we fix your diet? What healthier things can you be doing that makes it easier for you to still get the things that you like, but are healthier things that you're putting inside of your body? If you're angry all the time, where's a time that you can sit down first thing in the morning, maybe wake up 15 minutes earlier, especially as moms? I know this is very difficult. Waking up when the house is silent. Oh, it's a glorious time of the day. It hurts sometimes, but to have, I would say, the miracle of silence in the morning, or even after everyone goes to bed, and having that 15 minutes to look at your day, to see what works, what doesn't. Okay, where can I take the time out for myself? Where can I stop? And this can be either faith-based or meditation-based. Where can I slow down and just breathe? What are better decisions that I can make for my food and or what I'm putting inside of my body? So coping, it could be a healthy amount of working out, putting yourself on a budget. Another thing is accountability. Having someone, that's the thing as a coach, most people are like, oh, I can do that on my own. Checking. I still have my own coach. Okay, Heather, you said you were going to do this. Where are we at with that decision? And moving towards those types of things that are healthy. And like I said, that's how she's helped me work through rewiring how I even look at or feel about food. Same thing with whether it's shopping and those impulses that seem, and it can be doom scrolling, it can be social media. Where are those quick hits that you're turning to, and where can that healthfully be somewhere else? Like instead of being on your phone and Instagram looking for picking a fight, because both those things feel great, where I can sit on the couch with my family for half an hour, turn off my phone and just enjoy the moment. So those are the healthier things that bring you down to a much more calming environment, instead of getting caught up in the quick fixes, which are so readily available, especially in our culture, which seems counterproductive. You're like, well, I have so much to do. There's a time and a place for everything. If you know how to reorganize your day and cope with them and to learn how to put yourself first in all of this. I think even like Michelle Obama now, she's like, I put all the things in my calendar first for me, and then everything else is around that. I'm like, why does it have to take women so long? I mean, she had to be a first lady to finally figure that out.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Why
very
is
practical.
Exactly. Like, that seems like a really simple fix that we can all do. Like, where are the things for me that I can take care of that make me healthy first? Because if we're not healthy first, how can we take care of all the other people that we're trying to please? And that's what I realized when I was trying to people please them first and not take care of myself. I'm actually being of less service to them and destroying myself in the process of thinking I'm taking care of them. So that's usually how I help walk someone through. And it's all very individually based, whether they're back end trauma or what they're working through or what their go-tos are, and rerouting them and redirecting them and teaching them pause.
Yes.
Wait, is this constructive or deconstructive? Is this a healthy decision toward my goals that we're working towards or further away from? And that's where that balance and that middle ground starts coming in. And it becomes almost natural. Like, not to say I'm not perfect by any means, but that's why I saw the coach where she kind of like knocks me on the head once in a while, like, okay. But it's easier to get back into that balance once you're more trained for that. So.
Oh, yeah. And I think that question is super helpful. Is this constructive or is it deconstructive? Is very helpful when we realize we do have a choice over this. And just to have a moment to pause and think of that is what helps create those changes. I also think it's helpful that you pointed out these emotional components of how our tendency to create chaos, whether it's nagging or yelling or create like stirring up and creating drama. Again, the dopamine hit. We don't realize that that's a form of getting that. Yeah, it does.
Being right. We love being right as women. We're always right.
yeah, exactly. So those are very real as well. And I think it's helpful to hear the tangible and intangible aspects of what health and unhealth looks like. I'm curious what you've seen actually really changes for people, whether it's socially or professionally, when someone steps away from an unhealthy coping mechanisms and they move towards health.
Oh, literally everything changes entirely because they're now mentally and healthfully clear. People treat them the way they deserve to be treated because they're treating themselves that way. So their family life is better. I've seen marriages completely reconciled. Like they were at the breaking point. And to be able to redirect, like, okay, and self-inventory, like where are you, really looking at yourself to reconnect. Then when you walk into a professional environment, you're no longer hungover or depressed or exhausted from the day before.
Yeah.
You walk in confident. You can answer emails properly. You can, for me, read them properly. Sometimes when you're in that mode, do you believe what they just said to me? And then like, that's not what that email says. And so as humans and as women, I've seen lives completely transform where it opens up doors in so many areas that they did not even expect. I've had one girl who was just really a very simple, like low-level secretary, end up being completely self-employed. Like she was able to get out there, herself, hey, do you know this is what I do for a living? I can da 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 da. And they're like, oh, cool, you do that? And so to go from this like woman without a college degree to go from being completely self-employed, dropping 50 pounds in 6 months, and her family going, whoa, I don't even recognize her. It's not even, yes, the money and all the financial, security is a byproduct of that, just because you're more capable and people can take you seriously. But the confidence and the internal peace, that's priceless. The relationships, things that, and even me rebuilding my relationship with my daughter post sobriety, I can't put a price tag on my relationship with my husband and my daughter. They're just priceless gems that, because I did all this work, and I've seen that with other women that I've worked with, those relationships that were saved and redeemed and transformed gives them that. It's a healthy kind of people pleasing. I get to do this, to have a healthy family unit, because I'm doing this for myself. And that's those transformations. And now they're able to go in and like, this is what I do. This is who I am. You want to, and then it just becomes magnetic, and everything in our life, ends up just blossoming beyond their wildest dreams. And to see those transformations, for me, I could almost cry, like to watch that happen from like this old version of themselves and have them be almost sometimes unrecognizable is just, it doesn't get any better than that, at least in my world.
It's remarkable to hear about just the increase of confidence, like, in addition to the tangible external things, even like physically seeing the weight come off and the financial component and having a business, but then there's the intangible components of the confidence level, this like the whole shift of how you engage with the people around you and the world, like just the way you show up, where I think it just says a lot about moving towards health, like a healthy version of you in all of these aspects. Because when we do have that, we feel that increase of confidence, sense of like, no, like I know I can be confident in my nose. I can be confident in like, it's okay to disappoint somebody because I know why. We take ourselves with us everywhere. And
exactly.
That is the thing that so many women, we just like disregard and we don't pay attention to. It's what's going on in here. And
the biggest thing is learning to love yourself. How many of us, myself included, I did not love myself. I didn't find value in myself. And I had a 4-page resume, and everyone's like, what? You don't think you're worthy? Like, what does it matter with you? But most of us always feel like either that imposter syndrome, like, why is it that we can love so many other people, we can't figure out how to love ourselves and really find our true value? Modern moms in America are superhuman. The things that we can get done in a day is astronomical. And the fact that we don't think that we're worthy enough, like, girl, go look at what you've done today. Like, that's not normal. Have value in that, like, and confidence in that. So it's more, it's the confidence, but it's also that being comfortable in your own skin and in your own being as who you are, and having those line up. That's the intangible true gem internally that happens, and everything else becomes a byproduct as a result once that's intact.
Right. I could see that. I have this picture as you're describing it. It's like the people pleaser causes us to just be stretched in all these different ways. And then
like what you're mom, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then what you're talking about, it's really coming back into alignment. It's being aligned with what you value, who you are, and like the desires that are there, the things that God is calling you to, just all of those aspects. It's just like going from being stretched thin in every direction to coming back into alignment, which is just significant. And so it's really neat to hear about the work that you do. I'm curious, as we're coming to an end, if you can share with listeners where they can connect with you to learn more. That would be really helpful.
Absolutely. My website has everything you need, heathersimco.com. I have a community on there, one-on-one, anything, and touch. All my social medias are at Heather Simco. Luckily, I'm like the only one out there doing this.
That's great.
I lucked out with my name. So heathersimco.com. You can read even testimonies of women's lives that I've already helped transform theirs, and just different ways to connect with me there. And the community of the women I've built up, the tribe of women who literally are there to help lift you up and walk through life with you in the most positive way. That's also an intangible that I've been so grateful to have been able to cultivate in my own life, from being isolated to having some of the most amazing people around me.
Yeah, that's incredible. What a gift. And it's super helpful to hear too, just the variety of resources that you do have available for any woman who is looking to get help in this regard, just because it is so important and it's just easy to overlook, or it's easy to dismiss and think like we're not worth it and we aren't like, oh my gosh, the thought of asking for help. However, it really is invaluable. So thank you. And thank you for being on today and sharing your story, sharing your experience, and just the ways that you've seen women transform their lives. It's been so incredible to hear. So thank you for that today.
Oh, my pleasure. Feel so blessed to be here and to be doing this.
Amazing. Well, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And remember that you are not alone. Thanks for listening, friend. I cannot wait to talk with you next time. Thanks for listening to Let's Get Real. If you've been feeling stretched thin, stuck in survival mode, or like you've lost yourself in motherhood, I made something just for you. It's called the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide, and it's totally free. Inside, I walk you through simple steps to help you reconnect with who you are, find a bit more breathing room in your day, and start to feel like you again. You can grab it now. Just click the link in the show notes. You don't have to keep doing this alone. Let's take the next step together.